Hi everyone. Today we're on to chapter 10 of The Ice Monster. Hullabaloo. This was a day that would go down in history, so it was only fitting that the most powerful person in the world should be there. Queen Victoria was not just the Queen of Great Britain and Ireland, but the monarch of a vast empire that spanned the globe. She had adopted the title of Empress of India, despite the fact that she'd never actually been there. These were different days. As the crowd realised that they were in the presence of their queen, a woman who'd reigned over them for more than 60 years, they erupted into wild cheers, throwing their hats into the air. Hurrah! The golden carriage turned to the right to pass through the gates of the museum, and Elsie seized her chance. While the sky was black with hats, she leapt off the branch of the tree, whoosh, and landed on top of the queen's carriage. Thud. With all the noise and commotion, no one seemed to notice this huge breach of security. Elsie lay down flat on the roof of the carriage so she wouldn't be seen. In 1899, anyone getting this close to Her Majesty without the invitation might very well pay the price with their life. The carriage sped into the grounds of the museum and came to a halt at the bottom of the stone steps. Elsie lifted her head a tiny bit and peeked over the side of the carriage. Thousands of faces were pushed up against the metal railings, open mouths roaring their approval for their queen. Hurrah! The carriage wobbled slightly as Her Majesty stepped out. The queen was old and frail and tottered up the stone steps, helped by a handsome Indian attendant in a turban. She was dressed from head to toe in black and wore a solemn look on her face. That was because she was in deep mourning for her husband, Prince Albert, even though he had died nearly 40 years before. Not wanting to disappoint the crowd, the Queen slowly turned around and gave them a polite wave. Hurrah! While all eyes were on the royal guest, Elsie slid off the roof and lowered herself down the side of the carriage. There she hid behind a wheel. The hullabaloo must have startled the horses. Nay, nay, as the carriage shunted backwards a little. Elsie thought she was going to be trampled to death by the horses' hooves. The carriage driver cracked his whip, snap, and ordered, "Whoa!" Elsie let out a sigh of relief as the horses came to a juddering stop. The girl watched from her hiding place as the Queen was greeted with a bow by the director of the museum, the portly Sir Ray Lancaster, and led inside. The huge wooden doors were closed behind her. Thud. Now Elsie wasn't feeling too clever. All around her she could see the legs of policemen. How was she going to get inside that museum without anyone seeing her? She was desperate to do so, but Elsie had more chance of becoming the next Archbishop of Canterbury. As she pondered her next move on her hands and knees, the most unexpected thing happened. The carriage moved off, leaving the girl hiding behind nothing at all. She was concealed only by some air. Air is the worst thing to find yourself hiding behind. Other bad ones include a conker, a marble, a wasp, a rabbit dropping, a pea, a flea, a speck of dust, an amoeba dropping, the invisible man. Elsie was in deep, deep doo-doo. Chapter 11. Human Net. Ha ha! The crowd outside the Natural History Museum all laughed when the little urchin was revealed, hiding behind the air. The policeman looked around in confusion. There! The crowd pointed at the girl, and eventually the policeman saw what was right under their noses. They formed a circle round this uninvited guest and began closing in on her. Having lived on the streets, Elsie was no stranger to running away from the police, or the rozzers, as those who spent most of their time running away from the police called them. The policemen crouched down and stretched out their arms, sure that they would try to escape by running through their legs. "We've got you," growled the chief of police, Commissioner Barker. He was a heavy man with a tiny postage stamp of a moustache stuck over his top lip. The circle was closing. The policemen linked arms to make themselves into a human net. There was no way out. Spotting the truncheons dangling from their belts, a daring thought crossed Elsie's mind. Just as the policemen were looming over her, she grabbed two of the truncheons with each hand, yanking them as hard as she could. This brought the policemen crashing towards one another, their heads knocked together. Bish, bash, bosh. Ow! Oof! Ah! Dazed and confused, the policeman tumbled backwards and collapsed onto the ground. From above, the scene looked like a flower, with Elsie at the centre and the policemen all splayed out like petals. This brilliant move by the urchin instantly won over the crowd, and they cheered. Hurrah! No one wanted to see any of the policemen win against one little mite. However, there was no time to lap up the attention of the crowd. Elsie darted up the steps towards the entrance to the Natural History Museum. Another squad of policemen stood guard in front of the huge wooden doors. They drew their truncheons, ready to give this little creature a good bashing. Not wanting to receive a bashing, be it good or bad one, neither sounded appealing, Elsie slid down the handrail. To one side of the building entrance was a drain pipe. There was no time to think. What with her monkey feet, Elsie was soon halfway up it. Hurrah! Cheered the crowd once more. One bold policeman gave up chase on the drain pipe, but not being blessed with monkey feet, he instantly slid back down. Whiz! Ah! His bottom landed right on top of another policeman's face. Boing! Pooh! Complained the one whose nose was now stuck up the other's rear end. Needless to say, this perfect piece of slapstick was greeted by howls of laughter from the crowd. Ha! After her, you fools! Barked Barker. Right away, Commissioner, sir, said one. Form a ladder, ordered the Commissioner. How are we going to do that? Heaviest at the bottom. That's very kind of you, sir. Barker fumed. His tiny moustache twitched. I am not part of the ladder. I am in charge. Now the heaviest at the bottom, then the next heaviest, then the next, and so on and so forth. The policemen all started arguing amongst themselves. No one wanted to be at the bottom. I'm the lightest. No, I'm the lightest. You're the heaviest by far. I've lost weight. You still look fat. I've just got a round face. She's getting away, thundered Barker. The girl was nearing the top of the drain pipe. The Commissioner took charge of his human ladder, quickly ordering who went where. Soon the policemen were reluctantly climbing on top of one another. Needless to say, this amateur acrobatics act immediately came crashing to the ground. Oof, ouch, ah, eek, help, someone's trodden on me bits. The crowd whooped and cheered at this brilliant piece of entertainment. Hurrah! By this time, Elsie had reached the roof of the museum. She took a moment to acknowledge her adoring audience and gave them a little bow. The crowd burst into wild applause. Yes! She's done it! Go, go, go! The little girl hurried over the sloping roofs to the far side of the building, her monkey feet gripping the lead. For a moment, looking over the rooftops of London, she felt immortal. However, when a tile slipped from under her, she suddenly felt distinctly mortal. Kerrunk! The tile exploded onto the ground. Instantly, Elsie slammed down onto the roof. Thud! And began sliding down it at speed. Ah! The girl rolled over in a desperate attempt to grab onto the roof. Just as she was about to fly off, she managed to hook her fingers round the guttering. However, Elsie was going so fast, she swung forward, her fingers unhooked, and she felt herself hurtling through the air. No! That's all for today. Hope to see you tomorrow.